Fun game on Wednesday. Duke takes on Baylor. This is a neutral site game. Two teams that I think we've seen the best and the worst of so far this season. And when I say neutral site, it's important to note the same Madison Square Garden game at MSG. The lights are bright. You never know what version of teams are going to show up, what version of players are going to show up. There's some guys that I'm a little skeptical of in this game. Brian, that's Brian Rauf from Heat Check CBB. What are you most excited for in this game?
I'm excited to see how Baylor responds to getting absolutely blown out by Michigan State in their last outing. Duke is a team, the way Duke has been playing, Baylor should beat them. But I do think that the Michigan State loss showed some warts with Baylor that have kind of been brewing. And this is another kind of chance for them to prove either that they are the quality top 10 team that we have put them as based on the fact that they beat Auburn in the first week of the season, basically, or if there are serious issues that may need to be addressed and will keep them from actually being that team for the rest of the season.
Yeah. Yeah. The Michigan State Baylor game was bad. Like, I'm trying to think of a more fun way to say that, but look, this Michigan State team has not been great. It looks like they've turned a corner. They're certainly playing better, and they deserve a lot of credit for what they did to Baylor. With that said, that felt like a game to me that Baylor did not get off the bus for at all. I mean, anytime you are the top-ranked offense in the country, you score 17 points in the first half of a basketball game. I mean, Michigan State's defense is good. It's not that good. And look, that was a desperation spot for the Spartans. Now we're looking ahead to a Duke team that I think would like this game. I don't know that they need this game for resume purposes or anything like that. But at the same time, their only top 100-ish win right now is Michigan State. Hofstra technically cracks the top 100 on KenPom, but they really haven't beaten any of the decent teams that they've played. Baylor, talent-wise, I think is the opponent that is the best Duke has played since Arizona.
I would agree. And Duke needs this for the vibes and the fact that they can leave non-conference knowing they beat someone who was going to be a high-quality team. Right now, the Michigan State win, who knows how that'll end up looking in February and March, but right now it doesn't look like an okay win. Baylor's coming in this game, I think, needing to show something defensively. And to me, that was the bigger issue in the Michigan State game for Baylor, was that their defense got ripped apart. Last year, Baylor had a sub 100 or outside the top 100 defense in the country. It's the first time that had happened under Scott Drew in a very, very long time, and it just happened to coincide with Jerome Tang leaving Baylor's staff for the Kansas State job, and he was the guy in charge of their defense. That was why they stunk last year. Well, this year, after the Michigan State game, their defense is just as bad from all the metrics standpoint. Their adjusted defensive rating is 0.3 better than last year. That's all, 100.6, 100.3. They're giving up less than a point per game fewer against a much weaker schedule than they went through all of last year. Like, Baylor's defense, I think, might be an issue again that keeps them from being the team that we have come to expect Baylor to be. Duke's offense might be a good recipe for that, because Duke has had trouble scoring at times, and particularly in the backcourt, as we've talked about, they need something from their freshmen, particularly Jared McCain, as someone who can contribute against the best teams that Duke has played, because they need to have some of these wins against the better teams that they've played. When Duke has played a mid-major program, like a team they should stomp, Duke has largely handled business, but McCain has been great in those games. He's averaging 12.5 points. He's shooting over 53% from the field, almost 57% from three. Like, he has played like the five-star freshman that Duke needed him to be. In the 4 games they've played power conference opponents, he's averaging 5 points a game, shooting 23% from the field. 15% from three. So you have this, like, I'm interested in this component of, you have a team that is struggling defensively. That could be a potential issue. You have a team that has struggled scoring from some key spots. Something's got to give in that standpoint. Either McCain or Duke's backcourt is going to have one of those games that it needs, or Baylor's defense is going to get right. And we're going to find that out on a big stage in Madison Square Garden. I think it's going to be a lot of fun and telling to how both of these teams will go into the start of conference play.
That's a great nugget, by the way. I love the McCain nugget. So you bring up McCain, who I think obviously it's a fair conversation. It's not even the first Duke guard that I would pick out to have a conversation about. You know, I've had this with Tyrese Proctor. Is Proctor going to be healthy? What have you heard there?
I do not know, which is why I went to McCain. I think anything you get from Proctor would be a bonus, but I would not expect him to play.
Okay. Yeah, I don't remember who exactly it was, but whoever was doing recaps for Duke last week was hinting at a real conversation of, is this team better or worse without Proctor? I think obviously a best case scenario version of Proctor, or a best case scenario version of Duke includes heavy doses of Tyrese Proctor. With that said, I've kind of liked the way the other guys have performed without him. But again, competition level aside there, Charlotte and Hofstra are games that you should look very comfortable in at home, even without Tyrese Proctor. So, okay, you mentioned Baylor's defensive problems and you mentioned Duke's offensive problems. Which one of those two units are you more confident in, just objectively on paper, not necessarily in this game, but like which one do you believe in more?
I believe in Baylor more as a team because of what you said with their offense, the best 3-point shooting team in the country. Jacoby Walter is going to be a top 5, top 10 pick in the draft. Like they have enough to kind of overcome that. Duke has ridden Kyle Filipowski and Jeremy Roach to some of those wins. Last week, that Hofstra game that they played where everyone was kind of making fun of Duke in the first half because Hofstra was outplaying them. And then Duke had a big second half come back. That was because Filipowski stepped up and Jeremy Roach stepped up. The guys who are the experienced ones, the leaders. Duke's been able to get by with that, except for when they've played these high-level opponents, aside from Michigan State, and there are other reasons why that Michigan State game went differently. Like Duke has shown that that's a problem and they need this to improve. Baylor, because they have that Auburn win, because they have some other more notable wins than I think Duke does, I feel more comfortable in them being able to overcome the defensive issues. The conversation with them then becomes, are you in the top tier in the Big 12? Can you compete with Kansas and Houston? Are you a top 10 team nationally? Versus the Duke conversation, which is, are you top 25 good? Like, are you where we thought you were kind of going to be, or is this has a potential to get bad?
Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting because it's two teams that talent-wise have enough to win a national title, but it's two teams that, like, as we're seeing them come together at the end of December, have massive question marks because either fit-related things or just they haven't performed up to the level of what their promise could be. I have some rapid-fire style things to end with this. Does either of these teams win their conference?
No.
Does either of these teams make a Final Four?
No.
Does either of these teams lose in the first weekend?
Yes. I was going to say it makes it to the first weekend, but I think that's a little bit too trolly our tournament teams. But I think depending on matchups, both are vulnerable enough to lose.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. These are kind of teams I put an asterisk next to, of like, depending on the right matchup, depending who gets them, like that. I think there are things you can exploit. Okay, who wins this game? Ken Pom has Duke as are they a 1 point under? No, they're a 1 point favorite. Duke 80-79 is the expectation at MSG in this game. Who wins the game?
I'll throw a caveat in here because Proctor, as we said, his status is still up in the air. If he plays, I think Duke wins. If he does not, I think Baylor wins. I think you're looking at like a game within 5 points, either direction, either Baylor 5-point win or like Duke 5-point win, somewhere in that kind of range. And it'll depend on Proctor. The way Michigan State was able to get into the lane against Baylor is very concerning. And Duke's backcourt has struggled, Proctor included, because they've struggled to shoot, but they can get into the lane. And so if Baylor is going to allow Duke to get into the lane, which I think Proctor gives them the best chance to really do, I think Duke wins. But if they're limited without him, I would lean Baylor.
Okay, I'm going to go Duke simply because I think flip is the biggest issue that either defense has in this game. I think Baylor's guards are great. They can get hot. They're probably going to get hot, quite frankly. Like, I think this team is too good to put up two stinkers in a row. So I do expect a lot of points. I think this is a really high scoring game, but I think even if Baylor is on pace for one of those Baylor games, like we've seen, even in some of their wins, they give up 91 points to Florida. They give up 82 points to Auburn. I don't see a world where Duke doesn't get 80 plus in this game and Flip's not getting like 25 to 30 on his own with little resistance inside. So I think he's the constant. I think Duke has better high end talent. And who knows? Maybe there is a little bit of lingering carryover, even if they don't bounce back perfectly. Maybe there's a little mental hesitation from guys like Ray J. Dennis and Jacoby Walter in this one under the bright lights of Madison Square Garden. That's Brian Rauf from Heat Check. I'm Greg Waddell from Sleepers Media. We'll be here to recap this game as soon as it ends on the Sleepers Media channel is where you can find it.